All right, UFC 325 full card predictions. I took notes, but I lost my notes, and I'm also in kind of a rush, so this video is going to be quick, but I hope to have a pretty detailed. I did a good amount of research, so I feel like my picks should be pretty solid. I'm recording this like pretty much right after the first fight of the card, Aaron Tao versus Namzar Batbayar got canceled, and fuck Aaron Tao because I wanted to watch my boy Batbayar get another finish win. But he should be in the UFC now because I think he de facto wins the tournament. So that's cool. That's cool, I guess. First fight of the card, we got Sang-wook versus Lawrence Louis. I don't know. I'm going to pick Sang-wook. And kind of I was going to talk about it more with my Batbayar pick, but in a tournament format, there's a couple things that help, down the line. And one of the biggest ones is ability to improve as the tournament goes on, because I'm sure most of what Lawrence Louis is looking at when trying to game plan against Sang-wook is what he did in his previous couple fights in the tournament. But Sang-wook is really young. He was 19 when the tournament started. He's only 20 now. So he's probably improved a good bit. He might have changed his game plan up a bit. He might have changed his style a bit. And Lawrence Louis has started the tournament at 28. Now he's 29. Not as much improvement or change is going to happen at that point in his career. And I think Sang-wook even has a little bit higher level experience than Lawrence Louis. So I'm going to pick him. I think he's pretty solid. Next for the card, we got Sebastian Shalle versus Kichiro Nakamura. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Shalle or Shalle, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But I'm going to go Sebastian Shalle. I think his experience is a little bit better. He fought Baragang Gialissi, who is a former finalist in last year's World UFC tournament, or 2024 tournament. And he lost a close decision, I believe, or maybe it was I don't know, maybe he got finished. But he lost a pretty boring fight in the finals of that on the UFC Micallef card at the end of 2024. But I think he's pretty solid. He's from Eternal MMA, which is where JDM came from and a couple of other Australian guys. And he's looked pretty good in the tournament so far. And Nakamura, he's the younger guy, yes, but he doesn't have a lot of high-level experience, and he's not young. He's 27. Or he's not old, I guess, but he's not like 20 or 21, where it's like, this tournament makes up a significant percentage of his career. It's like, he's settled in as the fighter he's going to be. I don't think he's better than Shalle, so I'm going to go with Shalle. And then the last fight of the Road UFC fights, we've got Don Marfan versus Sang-wook Kim. I'm going to go with Don Marfan. He's 8-2. His two losses come to, what's his name? I'm going to talk about him in a second. Quillan Salkilld at Eternal MMA, so another Australian guy from that circle of fighters. So yeah, his only two losses are to Quillan Salkilld, and that's not a bad loss to have. Obviously, Salkild's looked pretty good in the UFC so far. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I thought he's looked pretty good in the tournament. He beat, what's the guy's name? Very strange name. Yuji Yannick Apeffiga, who is I think he's from, he doesn't look Japanese, but he fights out of Japan. He's got kind of a Japanese-looking name, maybe. And he was one of the biggest favorites in the tournament. He might have been the favorite to win the whole tournament. And he beat him in the first round. And he looked pretty good doing it. He out-grappled him. And I like that his grappling his grappling looks really good because his only two losses to Salkilld have come from the grappling. And then Sang-wook Kim, decent fighter, but I didn't love his regional career. A lot of the Korean guys have very tailor-made resumes, and 13-3 is not that good of a record coming from that circuit. And like I said, Don Marfan has looked a lot better throughout this tournament, so I'm going to pick him. So yeah, Road UFC, I'm picking Sang-wook, Sebastian Shalle, and Don Marfan. And I was going to pick Namzar Batbayar. On to the UFC fights, we've got Kaan Ofli versus Yizha. I'm going to Yizha. I thought he looked good in his last fight. Against, to be fair, it was against Weston Wilson, who's not very good, and he's very hittable and very finishable. But I don't think Kaan Ofli is that good. He was 0-2 in the UFC, and then he beat Ricardo Ramos. But I didn't rate that win super well. Ricardo Ramos kind of lets himself lose fights that he should win. And I thought until he lost, he looked like the better fighter. And I don't think Ricardo Ramos is all that good of a fighter. So yeah, I'm going to pick Yizha. Like I said, he finished Weston Wilson, who's finishable and hittable. But Kaan Ofli is not, defensively excellent. He trains with Volk, and he's kind of a similar style to Volk, but he's not nearly as, perfect in his technique. So I think that style doesn't lend super well against a guy who's as dangerous as Yizha, who's pretty big for the division. I guess they're the same height, but Yizha has a significantly longer reach, and I don't think they're the same height. I think Yizha is a little bit taller. So I'm going to go with him. Maybe to get a finish, maybe by decision. I just don't think Ofli's that good, and I also don't think he's good at like mounting a comeback. And we saw Yizha start his last fight really well, getting a finish in the first minute. So if he can, start off well like he did last time, I don't think Kaan Ofli's going to get a surprise finish in the third round. So I'm going to go with Yizha. Next on the card, very good fight. We got Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliott. Both these guys, pretty touted prospects. Oban Elliott, I think, started 3-0 or 4-0 in the UFC, which is really solid. And then Micallef 1-0 in the UFC, one win over Kevin Gisay. Now, the interesting about these fighters is they both of them have looked really technical. They look solid. They've done some interesting stuff, but neither of them have fought really at the greatest level of competition. Oban Elliott's wins have come against Val Woodburn, Preston Parsons, and Basil Hafez. All of them not very good fighters. None of them in the UFC anymore. They've all been cut. And then he fought the Korean guy, Seokyeon Ko, as a pretty big favorite, and he lost very decisively in his wrestling, which should be the best part of this game. And then Jonathan Micallef fought Kevin Gisay, who pretty decently proven. I think he trains with Adesanya. He fought a couple decent guys in the UFC, had decent performances. Like, he took a first round off of Brian Battle, looked good in that fight. But he's also been cut from the UFC. He's also not the best fighter. And he was maybe a little bit worse than we thought, which we get a decent amount of out of that Adesanya camp. Like, Blood Diamond, we thought he was going to be great. Well, maybe he did. But he was really bad, and a couple other guys. So maybe Gisay isn't the best. But I think Gisay is definitely a better win than Oban Elliott's opponents, especially when you consider the fact that he's fought 3 guys we know are not good, and the one time he fought a guy we didn't really know the skill level of, he got decisively beaten in kind of his own aspect of the game. So if he's not able to dominantly grapple Jonathan Micallef, I think he's going to get handily outstruck, because Micallef is a very good striker, and he did out-technique Kevin Gisay, who, regardless of his skill level in the octagon, pretty solid tit-for-tat kickboxer. So I thought Micallef looked good in an element of someone else's game. So if he can stop the takedowns, especially with his 5-inch reach advantage at the same height, I think he's going to have a pretty easy time in the feet. And I think Elliott might not be as good as we originally had hoped he'd be. So, next up the card, Jacob Malkoun versus Torrez Finney. I'm going Torrez Finney. He's an underdog, which I'm surprised by, because he's undefeated. Regardless of how boring some of his fights have been, they've been pretty dominant when he's fought recently. And Jacob Malkoun is just not very good. His win against Andre Petrosky, which was his most recent fight, in which he took no damage, and that was almost 2 years ago, so I don't know why he's taking so much time off. Maybe got injured or something, I don't know. But, he was losing to Petrosky. He was not very good. He lost the first round. In the second round, Petrosky started off the round by shooting a takedown, and he headbutt Malkoun's hip, and then it knocked him out. So, you can't really give Malkoun that win. Malkoun has this technique against the cage where he shoots a single leg, and then he pins you against the cage so you don't have anywhere to go, and he runs the pipe as he does an inside trip. And he's a very high success rate with his takedowns, which I think is good, but I think Torrez Finney's probably the better grappler, because when you watch Jacob Malkoun's fights, you realize he can get this takedown, and then he does know what to do once he gets the takedown. Sometimes he even lets the guy back up just to do his takedown again, because he knows he's going to get it, and maybe he'll just end up in a better position. But I think Torrez Finney is a solid enough grappler that Malkoun's not going to have a very high success rate in the takedowns. He's also not going to have a very high success rate in the grappling in general. And I think this is going to be mostly a grappling fight, because Finney is afraid of getting hit. He's kind of a coward, like the way he fought Robert Valentin. So I think it's going to be a lot of them trying to get a good position against the cage and take each other down. But when Malkoun does it, Finney's going to get right up. And when Finney does it, Malkoun's not going to get right up. He's going to be held down. So I think Finney's going to win a very, very boring decision. But I think it'll be a funny fight, because I think they're both going to get a bunch of takedowns and then look like shit everywhere else. So interesting matchmaking for sure. I think Finney easily could have fought someone, interesting. And Malkoun easily could have fought someone that's, maybe a bit better of a matchup for him, like a striker or something. Or at least someone that's going to make the grappling entertaining, like a Rodolfo Vieira or something like that. But instead he's fighting fucking Torrez Finney. So, I'm going to go with Finney by decision. 71% of people on Tapology are picking him, and he's a underdog, which is interesting. Not a big underdog. He's plus 120, but it's weird that Malkoun's a favorite. Next up the card, we got Cam Rowston versus Cody Brundage. I wasn't a Rowston believer. I was kind of doubting him coming to the UFC. I didn't think he looked amazing on the Contender Series. And especially when you consider he lost his first Contender Series fight to Torrez Finney, who's an underdog against Jacob Malkoun. I don't get why he's underdog. It's weird. Yeah, I didn't think Rowston looked exceptional on the Contender Series. The first time, obviously, he lost. And then the guy he fought in his second fight was like kind of a schlep. So I doubted him against Petrosky, but I thought he looked pretty good. It's rare for a middleweight to have like real like switched on snappy power and be pretty technical everywhere. Like, that's pretty uncommon for the division, especially when he's 6'3" and like a pretty long range guy. So I think there's a pretty legitimate prospect in Cam Rowston if he can have that switched on power like he did against Petrosky. And if he can be that good, I think he's definitely going to beat Cody Brundage, who, just look at his topology. He has the weirdest career ever. It's like DQ that he wins, DQ that he loses, no contest, draw, and then like controversial stoppage, like all that shit back to back to back. And then he had a robbery loss, arguably, in his last fight. Very weird fighter. Nothing ever goes right for him. There's a good chance we get a no contest or a DQ or something, or a draw. Honestly, if the odds are like plus 2,000 or better, maybe bet on a draw because it is Cody Brundage. Some weird shit is probably going to happen. But yeah, I'm going to go with Rowston. 31-year-old prospect. I don't love that, but it is middleweight, so fuck it. He's also a city kickboxing guy, so there's that. Next fight of the card, we got Junior Tafa versus Billy Elekana. I'm going to go, obviously, Billy Elekana. I don't rate him super highly. I don't think he looked good in the Ibo Aslan fight, which a lot of people thought was like a good win at the time. But I've always thought Ibo Aslan was shit and was going to get fraud checked. Kevin Christian, the guy he just beat a couple months ago, you can argue was like a really shitty prospect. He was just tall. He wasn't that dangerous. I thought Kevin Christian was actually a decent prospect. I liked him in his last couple fights. He took a long break and came back and looked pretty solid. But he was obviously hittable, and his chin was always in the air, and he was really big for the division, so he was going to be chinny. So Elekana cracked him and submitted him in a pretty fucked up finish because he trapped his arm on the side that the ref was on, so he couldn't tap with that arm. So he tapped with the arm on the opposite side in like a back flattened out rear naked choke. And the ref didn't see it. The ref didn't see him tap. So he was out for a good while. Like, he tapped, ref didn't see it, he goes out. He was out for another like 10 seconds before the ref stopped the fight. So pretty fucked up stoppage. But Billy Elekana looked decent in that fight. And obviously he lost to Guskov on short notice. Guskov's pretty good though, so I don't hate that, especially when he kept the first round close in the grappling. And then Junior Tafa is just fucking horrible at fighting. His only win is against Sean Sharaf, who I don't think is good at all. And Sean Sharaf took that fight on a couple days' notice. And every other fight Junior Tafa's had, he's fought like a total bomb. He's a quitter. You know, he lost to Tuco Talcos, for God's sake. So, yeah, I'm never picking Junior Tafa in a fight ever again. But Billy Elekana might be decent. I don't know. The one thing about his last fight as well is he wore his shorts on backwards. No one really pointed that out at the time, but if you go and rewatch the fight, he was pulling a Vittori, but literally in the cage. Like, people clown Vittori for years for wearing his shorts backwards in a photo shoot, but Elekana did it in the octagon. So, there's that, I guess. But yeah, I'll pick Elekana for sure. Next fight at the card, we've got Quillan Salkilld. This is on the main card. Quillan Salkilld versus Jamie Mullarkey. I'm going Salkilld, obviously. He's supposed to fight someone else. Rongju. He's supposed to fight Rongju. So he's fighting Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey's a pretty big can. He did beat Rolando Bedoya in the last one. He looked decent. But Rolando Bedoya isn't much of a finisher. And Mullarkey's biggest thing is that he's very easy to finish. So I think he's getting finished. Quillan Salkilld is a good finisher. He got a head kick KO on his last one. He knocked up Incho Jabli in the first exchange in his first fight in the UFC. So I think he's a solid fighter. I think he's going to beat Mullarkey, especially he's got a training camp. Mullarkey doesn't. It's definitely a step down in competition from his previous opponent. I think he'll look pretty good and get the win done. Next up the card, you got Tuivasa versus Tallison Teixeira. I'm going to go with Tallison Teixeira. Tuivasa has really taken a step back since the Cyril Gane fight. I think he's lost 5 straight. I mean, some of his losses aren't bad. Kaan and Volkov aren't terrible losses. Pavlovich, not a bad loss. But losing to Tybura, not a good look. Who did he lose to? Oh, yeah, he lost to Rosenstrike. Really bad fight. It was a split decision, but it was a really bad scorecard to give Tuivasa 2 rounds. And hasn't fought since then. He's looked out of shape in camp. It looks like he's not training super seriously. So I'm going to pick Tallison Teixeira. I don't think Teixeira is all that good, but I just think he's got a good ability to get a finish against a not very athletic, flabby fighter like Tuivasa. And he did that against Junior Tafa. So, I feel like it's not a very hard fight to pick, unless Tuivasa is like, if it was, 2022 prime Tuivasa, I'm picking him to beat Tallison Teixeira, who I don't think is that good. But, Tallison Teixeira is 6'7". He does got decent speed. He does have decent hands. He's got good power. not a very winnable fight for Tuivasa unless he finds that big shot, and it doesn't really seem like that's his thing anymore. So I'm going to go with Teixeira, probably by like an early finish. Next for the card, we got the featured fight, so we're already almost at the main co-main. We've got Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy, whatever. Portuguese word. Oh, I guess Ruffy's the favorite now. I'm going to pick Ruffy. I think he's got a couple things that help him. Fiziev is not the biggest opponent. He's only 5'8" at lightweight, which is kind of small. And against Bob Mundes had a couple things that helped him. He used his range pretty well. He was outstriking Fiziev in a couple moments, especially like when they weren't doing exchanges in boxing range. He was using a lot of good kicks well because Fiziev is very light on lead foot, kind of not very mobile target, who uses his arms to block a lot of kicks. Doesn't cross check kicks like other Muay Thai fighters. So he's not a very mobile target, easy to just throw kicks at, which Bob Mundes did well. And I think Ruffy's going to have similar success. Like I said, Fiziev's not going to move very well, so if he can keep kicking at him and make him, keep his arms at his side, and maybe get him used to body kicks and throw a couple of head kicks, I think he's going to have a lot of success there. I think Fiziev is going to be a little bit less likely to open up from out of range and do a blitz or something kind of like he did against RDA, just because he's going to be worried about getting kicked and maybe his legs are going to start getting chewed up. I could definitely see him using leg kicks well. Ruffy does have a very light lead foot as well. He's a little bit more mobile, but he definitely does put his weight on his back leg to throw hard right hands. But yeah, I think what it comes down to is that most of Fiziev's success in striking generally has come in extended exchanges in the boxing range, and Ruffy is very good at getting in and out of that range and not getting hit super well. He started to slow down against BSD, and it was that leaving of the boxing range where he was getting taken down. But I don't think Fiziev is going to use that as well, especially when a lot of BSD's takedowns came from having a huge cardio advantage because he had gassed out less and from being very strong. I just don't think Fiziev is as fast and as strong in those positions. I think he's going to have a lot harder time taking down Ruffy, who I think actually has pretty decent takedown defense, just based on the people he trains with. I think Gene Silva and Carlos Prates get a lot of shit for having bad takedown defense from people who don't watch the fights and just watch the highlights, because they just see oh, he's a striker whose fights long, he must have horrible takedown defense. But Gene Silva and Carlos Prates have really good takedown defense, and they have very similar looks to Ruffy, where they both go for a switch right away. They try to stay tall. They try to push the head down, shit like that. And I think they all have pretty decent takedown defense. I think they're kind of just getting hated on because it's fun to hate on them. Yeah, I think Fiziev's going to struggle to implement the grappling. He's going to struggle to implement boxing in the pocket. And I think that those are the only places where he has an advantage. I don't think Fiziev is very good at moving forward and striking. I don't think he's very good moving backwards. We kind of saw it against Bobby Green. Anytime Bobby Green was backing up, Fiziev had a really hard time landing anything but hard kicks to the body. And I don't think you want to throw hard kicks to the body against a guy like Ruffy, who can spring off his back leg and put you out with one punch while you're on one leg. So, yeah. And then the moving backwards, I think Ruffy's much better at striking while moving backwards than Fiziev is while throwing in combinations while moving forward. I think he's got a couple good blitzes. We saw him get some big moments in the striking. Like I said, against RDA, he had a kind of a blitz where he knocked him down, cut RDA by surprise by being out of range. But I think the reason why RDA was caught by surprise is because Fiziev doesn't really throw in blitzes a ton. He's not very accurate when he does do them, and it was late in the fight. So I think he was like, he's not going to throw a blitz right now. I'm going to keep my hands down as I back up. And he threw him and caught him. But I feel like if he tries to build that as a habit in his main striking offense against Ruffy, he's going to get caught by a counter, because Ruffy's really slick with knees at the middle and straight rights. So I don't really see where Fiziev has an ability in the striking other than the leg kicks. But I also think he's very kickable, and he's not going to want to kick against a guy who's as explosive off his back leg. So, yeah. If he can make Ruffy switch stances, he's probably going to have a lot more success, because I don't know if Ruffy's as explosive off his his left leg, which is normally his lead leg, especially if he gets chewed up a little bit. If he starts getting his leg beat up, he's going to lose a lot of that explosiveness in southpaw. But I don't know if Fiziev can do that while winning a fight and not getting dropped a couple times. So I'm going to go Ruffy. It'll probably be a close fight. I don't imagine he finishes Fiziev. Fiziev's hard to finish. I think the only time he's been finished is the Gamrot fight where his knee exploded. And maybe that's a thing that Ruffy will target, kicking at his right leg. But I don't know if that'll be a huge factor. I think Ruffy will just win by being more explosive on the outside, good at staying out of the inside, and landing a ton of kicks throughout the fight. So Yeah, I'm picking Ruffy. I think it'd be a great fight, though. I love Ruffy. I think he's one of the more overrated. Hated, not overrated. I think he's got a really good style, and he does a lot of cool shit, and people just like to hate him because he's popular and cool. So I'm going to go Ruffy. But I could see him losing. But honestly, he's not a fighter I don't mind if he loses in this spot, because I don't really think he beats anyone above the Fiziev in rankings. But I think he has a great fight with everyone else in the ranking. So if he loses, it's like, fuck it, at least he gets a good fight in his next fight. Probably didn't lose his next one. So there's that. And speaking of Benoit Saint Domingue, we got the co-main event, Dan Hooker versus BSD. I'm going to go with Benoit. Dan Hooker, he just fought Arman Tsarukyan in November, which is funny because Arman took forever off between his last two fights, and Dan Hooker's coming back right away. But Dan Hooker took a lot of damage that fight. His face was really swollen and beaten up. He definitely broke his nose. I bet if he broke an orbital, he wouldn't be fighting so soon, but it looked like he had some other damage to his face. And he just kind of got ran through, and that's kind of Dan Hooker's problem, is that he doesn't have a lot of resistance to good grapplers. And I think Benoit is that. Like, I think he is a good grappler. I think that's been shown clearly in the Dustin Poirier fight. In the first round, he had Poirier. He was ragged on him. He was taking him down. He was smash passing. He was getting to mount. He was getting the back. And I think if he can do that against Dan Hooker, he can get a finish early on, because Hooker just has a lot less resistance to that stuff. And even if he doesn't get a finish, I don't think he's going to gas out like he did against Poirier, because, like I said, Dan Hooker just so much less resistance. And Dan Hooker also doesn't have knockout power. I will say, I think that if he landed the strikes that Poirier landed, he gets the same finish. Like, I think if he lands a couple big lead hooks as Benoit has his hands down and is just missed a strike, I think he'll definitely rock and finish BSD. But I don't think BSD is going to be as gassed, assuming he doesn't have staph infection again. And yeah, I don't really know where Dan Hooker's success happens again, unless he gasses. But it's a 3-round fight. And I can see BSD having an easy round 1 and 2 and maybe getting a finish just by kind of running over Hooker. So, yeah, it's weird seeing Hooker fight a guy who's got a couple losses in the division and being a plus 265 underdog. But then you look at Hooker's record, and he's 24-13. He's lost like a third of his fights. They've all been against high-level opponents, but he does lose kind of a lot. So, and he gets beat and hurt a lot. Like, he's taken a lot of damage in some of his losses, like the Micallef loss. Or maybe he didn't take a ton of damage that. But the Tsarukyan loss, which was super recent, he took quite a bit of damage. Even the Jalen Turner win, he took a ton of damage. And the Gamrot win, he took a bit of damage. And Edson Barboza beat the shit out of him. So he is kind of just like a guy you can overwhelm and doesn't have a ton of resistance. And he's almost 36. So, yeah. Bad. I think this is really dumb of Hooker to take this fight so early. If he fought a Fiziev, or if he fought a Ruffy, that's a way better fight for him, and he's going to take less damage and probably have a better chance of winning. But instead, he's fighting, the other guy. He fought Islam, he fought Gamrot, he fought Arman, and now he's fighting the next, good wrestler who's really tough and really, not super easy to finish, and is really strong. So, not a very good matchup for him. But he definitely could get it done. Like, Benoit is not a very good fighter. The stuff he did against Poirier, where he's just leaving his hands down. And the way he got dominated by Malkoun, Hooker could beat him, but I don't think he's a very good matchup. And then we got the main event, the rematch, Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes 2. I'm going with Volkanovski again. I picked him in the first fight. It went about how I thought it would, with a little bit less grappling. A lot of what I'm going to say for this prediction is based on a video, or not even a video, but I have a very similar take to a video that Jack Slack just made, where he talked about how bad the footwork of Diego Lopes and Team Lobo is. I talked about this exact same thing in my last prediction for this fight, for the first fight. But Diego Lopes has a very bad flaw in that, and so does Irene Aldana and Alexa Grasso, who both train with him, and that he has really bad footwork and he's really bad at cutting off the cage. And that's the exact opposite thing you want to have against a guy like Volkanovski. If you compare how Elliott cut the cage, Volkanovski is going to back up and throw it on the back foot a ton. A lot of his stuff is step up lead low kicks and feints and jabs and stuff like that, stuff you need a bit of space for. So if you can cut him off and get him pinned against the cage and, make him, open himself up to getting hit while he's against the cage, that's the best way to beat him. That's what Taporia did. He backed him to the cage. It made him make a decision, and that decision was the wrong one. He got called with an overhand, the lead overhand. He got knocked out. But Diego Lopes just could not do that at all in the first fight. He would back Volk up to the cage, and then he would leave too much room on one side, and Volk would just run out the open side. Again, if you go watch the Jack Slack video that he posted like a week ago, it breaks it down really well. But I think it's going to be more of that. And I think another problem is that Diego Lopes is going to be a lot more aggressive. One, because he got to finish his last fight. He's probably feeling himself a bit. He's probably like, I can knock anyone the fuck out. I remember who I am. I'm Diego Lopes. I'm the guy who almost knocked out Brian Ortega. I'm the guy who knocked out Pat Sabatini. I'm that guy. I'm the guy who knocked out, Sadiq Youssef with like a fucking pitter-patter shot. So he's probably going to be aggressive, feel himself, and he's going to be like, well, my one moment of success in the fight was where I got in an extended exchange and landed a good punch and dropped Volk and almost finished him. So let me just run at him and try to like not worry about footwork and just get in the boxing range, which definitely could work because that is how he's going to win. He's going to land a big strike and get a finish or get a submission or something like that. But again, it's just like a dumb game plan. Like you have to do a smart thing to win a championship fight, which is like cut off the cage, improve your footwork, be there where he's going to be. And we've just never seen anyone at his gym do that. So I don't know why he's going to improve in that element. And if he's going to be more aggressive, I think it lends to him getting hit more. It leads to him probably getting taken down. And I think that's going to be the main difference in this fight. I think Volk is going to grapple a lot more. I think he thought he'd be more confident in the first fight. And after he won the first round, I thought maybe he got a little more confident. And that led to him getting dropped. I think now he knows, like, I can't just risk getting knocked out in every exchange and, like, barely win and by, out jabbing and out pitter pattering. He's like, I need to like be a little bit more clear, a little bit more safe. And I think that's going to be make Lopes frustrated, make him open up, and then take him down or crack him with a big shot. And I think that's either Volk's going to get a finish in like the second or third round because Lopes gets aggressive and he gets dropped and finished, or again, like after the first round, Lopes is going to open up and Volk's going to take him down and he's going to beat him up kind of like he did to Brian Ortega for most of that fight. And the reason why I thought this, and for the first fight, and I think it again for this fight, is that is how Dan Ige made the fight close on a couple hours notice. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that fight. I think it was UFC 303. He's supposed to fight Ortega. Ortega drops out the morning of the fight, and Dan Ige weighs in like during the event and fights in like the co-main event against Lopes. And he won one of the rounds, and it was a close fight just because he would get in Lopez's guard. He'd tire Lopes out by Lopes doing a lot of action on the bottom, and then he just stand up in that stacked guard position and punch Lopes in the body, punch him in the head, and just, stack up volume from dominant positions. And that's exactly what Volk did against Ortega. He just made him work on the back, made him go for his positions, gas himself out, and then he beat him up from his guard. So yeah, I think that's what Volk's going to do. In this fight, I think it'll be a lot more of that. I don't really know why he wouldn't. I get Lopes is dangerous from his guard, but I think he's, just as, if not a little bit less dangerous than Ortega. And I think that's a great spot for Volk to be, to beat up his opponent and win the fight. So yeah, I'm going to go with Volkanovski. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my predictions. I did a recap and a prediction event for the last card. I did a prediction event for every single fight, or pretty much every single fight last year, every event last year. So go check that out. It's a post on my channel with every prediction. Subscribe, like the video, share the video. I'll be live tweeting the events. Follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description. I think that's all. So yeah, thank you for listening. Sorry for the little short video. It wasn't a great card, so it's going to be a little shorter, and then a couple of the fights dropped off, and a couple of them were Road UFC. But yeah, pretty confident in these picks. I went 9-2 last week, so I'm starting off the year 9-2. Yeah, again, let me know what you think. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, thank you for listening.